we are live. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year and welcome back for another episode, everybody. If not now, when? I am super excited today to introduce you my special guest, Jim Denholm. And everybody, first thing you need to know about Jim is he is someone who's really extraordinary. He is from a little tiny town in Texas. Yet, he had this big dream. With a degree in engineering, but a passion for investment, he actually started off his career in Morgan Stanley. And one more thing you need to know about Jim is, oh my God, he is such a nice person. He's such a people person and really passionate about serving his clients. His people-focused, client-first approach really enabled him to win so many successes throughout his career, whether it's Morgan Stanley, later JPMorganChase, and executive at Wells Fargo. As a result, Jim also earned so many awards within the industry for rewarding him to helping his clients pursue their financial goals. And in 2017, Jim finally decided, now is his time to shine. So he founded and created IronBridge in Austin, Texas, the most beautiful town in the entire universe. His intention, his goal is to really assisting his clients on their pathway to success, including financial planning, portfolio management, risk mitigation, customer service, and so many more. With that, everybody, I am just so excited and honored to have Jim to join us today, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Wen. It's an honor to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Of course, so excited to have you here. So, Jim, take us back. Tell us how all the journey got started.
Well, I did grow up in a little town called Amarillo, Texas. It was a great place to grow up, kind of right in the middle of nowhere. But absolutely wonderful people. Most people have stopped there going skiing. It's definitely not a destination place, but it was really a fantastic place to grow up. And I think you learn growing up in a small town, just some core values, and you see people around you being nice and friendly and thoughtful and outgoing, and I think all that stuff sort of rubs off on you. So came down and went to UT in Austin. Hook 'em horns, but have an engineering degree. And a lot of people say, that's kind of a strange way to get into the financial services business.
Yeah. How does that work? Yeah, you have a degree in engineering and you're supposed to be an engineer in a fancy firm. How did you pivot to investment? That's a complete, 90-degree shift, right?
Well, yeah. There's not a lot of us that can't have an engineering background. I mean, a lot of this is, I think most of the people in the financial services business are basically salespeople.
Right.
But, I always was very good with numbers. I like math. I was good at science and math. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew engineering gave me a lot of different options. So as I started in engineering school, I did put myself through school and had student loan money. And I thought I had such a long time frame between when I got my first student loan check in August, and I didn't have to make my last rent payment until December. That I started to dabble into stock market. So I wanted to try to make a little money on that.
3 months.
Make a little beer money in the meantime. And it's nothing that I would advise right now that people do. But it was the mid 90s, late 90s. The stock market was going up, and it really just got me interested in stocks. So I started reading the Wall Street Journal and watching CNBC, and I was just sort of was drawn to it. I didn't know that I wanted that to be a career by any means, but I knew I was drawn to it.
What drawn you, Jim? What made you
It was
fascinated?
just the markets are fascinating to me. It incorporates everything. It's not just numbers. It's not just a company balance sheet or earnings or what the price is and what the price is doing. It involves kind of geopolitics and global events and current events and news and social trends and data and numbers and charts. And it just fascinated me that there were these enormously complex systems out there that people tried to navigate on a day-to-day basis. And it's one of those things that they're so complex. You don't know what you don't know going into it. And that was one of the really interesting things, is like the more I learned about it, the more I realized I didn't know about it.
Wow.
And so it was a huge challenge. And so I was just interested in it.
That's wonderful.
I graduated with I knew in engineering school I didn't want to pursue engineering as a career.
Oh,
was
it a hard realization, because you take 4 years, there's so many classes, lab classes, you're realizing that? Was it a hard realization to actually sit with it and then decide?
It was a class where we were designing ball bearings. And I thought, I don't think I want to do this the rest of my life. And so I had some really good friends in college that kind of helped me along. I got a little frustrated and wasn't sure if I wanted to finish the degree or not. And had some really good friends that helped kind of push me along and get across the finish line and get my degree. Well, then I started shopping my resume around, and it was, I graduated in 2000, and that's kind of right as the tech bubble was popping, and Austin was a real, got hurt by that quite a bit. So there weren't as many jobs out there as there were just even a year before. And so shopped my resume around, and I ended up with 2 job offers. I ended up with a job offer from an engineering firm that was designing HVAC systems. It was designing air conditioning systems for strip malls.
Wow. It's a fancy job at 2000. It's a fancy, amazing
that
job.
was one. I had an offer for them, and it was going to pay $70,000 a year and benefits and all the different things as a 22-year-old that you want. Then I had another job offer from Morgan Stanley, and it was paying $20,000 a year, had a 95% failure rate, but it had unlimited upside.
95% failure rate? That's a very high rate.
It's a very high rate. 1 out of 20 are going to make it.
How did you make that decision? It's a tough decision. You are first graduate, you have tons of student loans, you're only 22, you don't know what you don't know, and then having 2 offers in drastic different compensation. How do you make a call?
Yeah, I mean, it at the time, I thought it was fairly straightforward. If I took the engineering job, I knew I wouldn't take the risk of the financial job, and I would get comfortable with an income, and I would get, it had limited upside, and I would probably have a great career, but it wasn't real exciting, and it didn't have the upside. It was low risk with low upside. And the Morgan Stanley job had a lot of risk, but it had unlimited upside. And I thought, if I'm going to ever try this, this is the time to do it. I'm okay if I fail. I'm okay kind of emotionally thinking that I'm going into it thinking there's a very good chance that I do fail. But I think I can control it by how hard I work and how hard I learn and what I do. I kind of control to a big degree the percentage of likelihood of success.
That's amazing.
And I thought if it doesn't work out, I can go get an engineering job. I can go to graduate school and get an MBA. I could go to law school. So I thought, the downside is maybe I have to go back to school or take a job I'm not real crazy about. But that was the opportunity to go ahead and do it. So,
so
started it.
Optimistic. You look at the outside, this is all I'm getting, I'm going forward, even though.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it was, like I say, it seemed like an opportunity at the time. And because I wasn't, while I dabbled in stocks, I didn't have a finance background. I really didn't have any kind of sales background.
So was it scary? You know nothing. Was it scary?
Exactly.
You are excited, but you don't know anything about that. And they are such a high failure rate. So how do you measure? So tell us how that journey actually began, and was it as easy as it seems?
Well, they came in and, they said they have a good training program. So, these big firms have really good training programs. So, the first day after I got hired, they came in with about a 700-page book and said, here you go. You've got 6 months. You're going to take a test from this book. And if you fail, you're fired.
Wow.
And said, okay. So that's kind of your first, called a Series 7. It's a, kind of a securities exam. A lot of people fail in that business because they can't pass the exam the first time. I passed it, which was a relief.
Yes.
Took a couple other training courses and started to realize again that I really didn't know. As I learned more about it, I learned that I didn't know. I knew less than what I thought I knew. So there were a couple things that were really helpful. I made a decision and I was in an office where, there were like 50 advisors that were all fairly well established and had been in the business for 5, 10, 15, 20, some 30 or 40 years.
Wow. And
I thought, I can either try to do this myself and reinvent the wheel, or I can go and try to get some advice from people. So, one of the best things that I did very early on is I went around to more experienced people and said, look, I'm brand new. I'm in the training program. Can I have 15 minutes of your time to give advice? I'll do 3 hours of grunt work. If you want me to stuff envelopes or make copies or whatever, you got 3 hours of my time.
Wow.
Just give me 15 minutes of yours.
Wow.
And the fact is, nobody really took me up on the grunt work, but they were more than happy to provide advice.
Wow.
And so I was able to learn a lot, kind of condensed, consolidated advice from people that have been doing it a very long time. So that was a really good thing that I think helped. The other thing that really helped sort of put things in perspective, because I'd always thought about it from purely an investment standpoint, and the job was trying to get clients to trust you to invest their money and trying to, thinking about the investment side of things. But my training finished up. We went up to the Trade Center in New York City in Manhattan.
Ooh. What day is that? What year is that?
Well, I was up there for 3 weeks on floor 61 of Tower 2. And my last day there, after being up there for 3 weeks, was September 6th, 2001.
Oh my God.
So my last day in the Trade Center was a Thursday, and September 11th was the next Tuesday. So it was really a very surreal experience.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, fortunately, all the people that I knew from training got out. That Monday before was my first day of my career. I had a business plan all laid out. I made 400 cold calls and got a couple of appointments lined up. And then September 11th was the next day. So I had to completely change. It was, obviously the world changed, and, you couldn't really cold call people and try to prospect people. So it really just made me focus, kind of refocus in my mind, and a big switch went off in my mind of, this is a volatile time and people need help. So instead of viewing it as I need to sell something in order to make my numbers and keep my job for the next year, it just switched. That just seemed inappropriate. It seemed sort of silly. It seemed just didn't seem like the right thing to do. So I was able to sort of pivot and think about helping people. And that's really that was the moment where I just kind of knew that I was going to be able to do this career long term. Was from that very uncertain, strange, surreal, awful, experience. But
it's incredible to think about someone like yourself, who are literally, it's your first day at job, and second day such a insane event happened, and of course no one expect that, and you're able to stay calm and pivot your approach and really see this as an opportunity for you to continue to even more serving your clients. How would you always be this calm and this collective and really have that focus and really know the path ahead of you? Because people easily freak out and say, you know what, this is not me. Go back to my AC in the mall. It's fancy. I got my benefits. Nothing will ever happen. But you choose, you know what, this actually is time, is a calling for me. I actually need to step up to serve. I'm the leader. I'm my people's waiting for me. You have that pivotal moment and you make a decision. I think that is the reason why you're so successful today.
I think you never know how you're going to react until you get into stressful situations, where a lot of situations don't create character, they reveal character. I forget whose quote that is, but I don't know why. I think I've always sort of led to being a leader, but I think it's just sort of trying to do the right thing, and what's the right thing at that point in time. That you get stressful situations and you sort of have something down deep inside that says, I can do this, and you're going to overcome obstacles, and there's going to be challenges,
Amazing.
So you just sort of make the best decision and go with it.
So aside from professional perspective, Jim, I'm curious, you were right there that Thursday before the big event hit, right? Yes, people who are, fortunately, everything is fine. But how does that impact you personally? How does it impact your perspective on life, on everything?
Yeah.
Because you are close, you are right there. I'm curious, how if you can share that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's been in a situation as close to something tragic and you weren't affected by it, it was just pure luck that I wasn't there the week after. I think it made that kind of massive, global, awful terrorist attack something very real. So it was spooky for sure. And I think you just, I think what you take from it is, life is precious, and you can have the best plans laid out, but things can change, quickly, and not always for the better. So, you need to be prepared for times when they are going to get tough, whether it's career or personal or family, life, whatever. I think if you can think through the things that can go wrong, at least you're a little bit prepared for when things, don't go exactly as you hope and kind of surprises come up. So, it was a valuable experience to be able to have that. It was great to be able to experience those buildings too. It was neat. I mean, the whole area was fascinating. So it was, being up there for 3 weeks, I felt like I knew the area and knew people and knew the city a little bit. And so, you just have to learn from it what you can. You never know when your learning experience is going to come from.
Amazing. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now you pivot in your career. Second day, traumatic event happened. You were like, okay, now it's time to serve. So take us from there, Jim. What happened next?
Well, next, really nothing much happened that week. We I just had to, our office let everybody go home, and I just had to think about how I was going to pivot to do something different. And I started focusing on financial planning and trying to serve people and help people. And I got my first client and went out to sign paperwork. And I thought, I was 22 years old. I realized that I knew less than what I thought I knew. And I just thought, what is wrong with you people? Like, why are you signing up with me? I don't understand it. But I brought a team together and we were able to serve these folks really well. But when I went back to sign paperwork, they had baked me a cake, and it was like, okay, this is really good. Like, there's something bigger than just an account, money in an account. It was very volatile, and we're able to kind of create some clarity. And even though I didn't know what I was doing, I was able to get people who did know and did have experience to help me with that particular client and what we should be doing. And they were very grateful. And that's what sort of set me on, to get really excited about this career. And that kind of carried over through multiple jobs. And it taught me that having a good team behind you is important. You can't do everything by yourself. I was fortunate, after I got a little experience with Morgan Stanley, I got hired by JPMorganChase. And
before we go next, Jim, I'm very curious, because at the first job, the JP Morgan is a really defining moment for you to pivot and really stand out in 95% failure rate. You are at 5%. So before we go to next journey, I'm curious, what do you think that made you that 5%? What made you stand out? What made you successful at that young age in that particular period of time?
I think it was probably doing the hard stuff. It's doing the stuff that is not fun. Now my job is a passion of mine. I was interested in markets, but I wouldn't call it, a calling per se. I didn't know growing up, this is what I wanted to be. It's not like I knew I was going to be a doctor and I became a doctor. It was sort of an opportunity that I took because I thought I could do it and I thought I could be successful at it. I've grown to love the industry and have it be my passion. So I think I'm doing my passion right now from a work standpoint, but I didn't think it was my passion at first. And it was a matter of doing the hard things that nobody wanted to do. I mean, I didn't have clients. I didn't have a big network of people who had money. I mean, all my friends were, poor like me, trying to make ends meet on a month-to-month basis. So I had to cold call, and that's just at that time, 20 years ago, that's how you did it. And it was awful. I mean, you'd make 100 calls and 60 people wouldn't answer, and 30 people would, gripe at you and yell at you never to call you back. And why are you doing that? 5 people would, sort of give you the benefit of the doubt and entertain you. And then you'd have 5 that might be sort of interested. And maybe you got a follow-up phone call with 1 or 2. And so it's really easy to get deflated and to allow yourself to, let the work, the fact that it's not fun, that it's hard, that there's, you have to overcome it. I think that's why a lot of people fail. I mean, it's just, you have to do the stuff that nobody wants to do.
So what kept you going though? You mentioned at the beginning that wasn't your passion. That wasn't like, oh my God, this is the thing. Like, you did not know that just yet. This is your first job, and everybody failed, right? What kept you going? once you know this is not fun, like there are 1,000 calls I need to make, what drives you?
Yeah, I think by that point, you start to put in some effort to it and realize you can do it. I started studying, and I liked, for the most part, the material that I was studying. I could do it. You go through, like, for me, it's kind of extreme. You go through 9/11, and that's extreme. That's easy to go to say, I don't want to deal with this. The markets are shut down, and the economy, its economy was poor. Things are crazy, but I think going through those things, you kind of learn that you can do it. And, you learn, if you just push through it, that you start to get some success, and then you get a client, and you see that there's impact, and, they bake me a cake. And so, I think as you overcome those different things, I knew it was worth giving the effort.
Amazing.
It was never a question of I shouldn't give the effort because there's not some kind of reward or payoff or whatever. I thought that this was a career that I could do, and I thought it was a career that I could be interested in long term. But I think it's overcoming those things, and it just allows you to sort of push through it. And then you have to have a competitive, if you're in a difficult job that's, low success rate, you have to be competitive to be able to do it. And I think I'm pretty competitive myself in a lot of things. And so you just start going through it, and you control it too. I can choose to make these uncomfortable phone calls, or I can choose to not do it. And if I don't do it, I'm not going to make it. So, you just sort of have to make the decision to go, take the next step and make the next phone call. And so I kind of did some little tricks to help me with that. But, call blocking and time and different rewards and incentives and disincentives for myself, but you just have to do it. And I think that applies to a lot of different careers, not just, financial careers. It's reason people don't do things is because they probably don't like to do the little things that result in success.
I really like that. Thank you for sharing, Jin. That's so beautiful. So now let's pivot a little bit. You start off your career, wow, incredible success. So let's talk about, when do you realize you want to be entrepreneurs?
I think I kind of knew that deep down for a while. I wanted to have my own firm at some point. And I think there was a couple of times where I realized that. I think choosing the financial services career over the more stable engineering career was that the first sort of, looking back, I didn't think this at the time, but looking back, there was an entrepreneurial decision that happened there, sort of subconsciously, that I can do something that's going to create some bigger rewards than maybe the more stable path. I was after JP Morgan, our team was hired by Wachovia in Austin to start the private bank. And that was an interesting experience because we had about 4 years before the financial crisis, when Wachovia basically went under and got acquired by Wells Fargo. But it was very entrepreneurial. They had just moved into Austin. They had just moved into Texas. It was a big bank that had a lot of resources, but it was very much kind of a startup feel. Where we were hiring a lot of people and opening all these new locations, and it was a different kind of a playbook than a well-established high market share bank, and I really enjoyed it. So that environment was a lot of fun. So I think that was kind of the second time where I sort of realized that I would like to start my own. And then in the 5 or 6 or 7 years after that, before I started IronBridge, you just start seeing some of the flaws in the industry as you get experience. You see things that you might want to improve upon that you can't do in a big firm. You start to see ways you might be able to serve your clients a little bit better, start to see some of the problems with asset management that you think you can do better. And that sort of evolved to starting IronBridge, and was able to hire some really, really good people that are all still with me, and people that I've worked with for a long time, that have a similar client service mindset. Our portfolio manager, Chad Carnes, is fantastic. He was, we were able to brainstorm different ways to improve upon asset management strategies and then deliver it. So, we just saw a little opportunity to,
So let's take a yeah, no, it's so beautiful. And let's take a second to unpack that journey, right? You were in Wells Fargo, you were in, this high executive, you're in a fancy suit. You are really incredible, in your career-wise. And you decide, what, there's something I can do better. Was it a hard decision for you to let go of that, fancy salaries and all the things and then start over? And how does that start? Because when we talk, I remember you were just starting a young family, which it's pretty challenging time, right? So talk about how does that all started?
Yeah, it was probably an easier decision than you might think. If you go back to the time Wells Fargo was a great place to work, and had a lot of great friends that worked there and still work there. They were going through a tough period of time. That was when the kind of national account scandals were going on, and they really made some big, blunders, I think, from up top. That made it easier. You start to think, okay, the bank is doing all these bad things for their customers. It's like fundamentally goes against what I believe. So it made it easier to your loyalty to a firm that is doing bad things is less than a loyalty to a firm that, is doing great things. And so it was, they were good to me and I liked all the people I worked with, but I really disagreed with the decisions that were made from the top in other areas of the country. And so it made it a little bit easier to go ahead and make a switch.
How does it actually make a switch? How do you actually start it?
I mean, I in this business, you get some experience and you get relationships and you become valuable, so you can get paychecks from other banks. And I was getting offered some pretty big signing bonuses, kind of multiple 7-figure signing bonuses to go other places. And it just seemed like they all were doing the same thing. As I started to, interview and have discussions with all these big investment firms, it seemed like they're all doing the same thing with a different business card. And so was really fortunate. A friend of mine at the time was starting his own firm. And I took him to lunch and started talking. We actually started thinking about creating a partnership together. We realized we had different visions of what we wanted a firm to look like and do and things. So we didn't create a partnership, but he was able to open up a lot of the research that he had done and kind of share his budget and share the different third-party resources that he was looking at. So it's, again, kind of leveraging not trying to reinvent the wheel, and, being fortunate to talk to enough people where I came across, a friend of mine who was doing what I was wanting to do and was able to share all this research and things with me that, kind of it probably took 6 months off of the overall process. So there was a due diligence period where I was really exploring, is this right for me at this point in my career? Who might I want to bring with me, and would they be interested? And everything started lining up, and I thought, I think I've got a good idea. I think I've got the right things in place. I've started talking to some people, and they're interested. And then it became a question of when. And that's when we had a brand new family.
Oh my God.
We had we had a 1.5-year-old and a newborn. And this was about 6 months before I actually launched.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when I really knew that I wanted to do this, where I'd work hard. I was a good employee at my previous firm, and would get in at 8 or 9 o'clock and leave at 4 or 5 o'clock and give a good effort. But then I'd come home and help out with the family, put the kids down. My wife would try to sleep when the infant was sleeping. So I'd come into my office at home and start working and prepping for IronBridge and get a few hours of sleep and wake up. My eyes would pop open at 3 a.m. and I'd come into my office at home and start working on it. And I'd work on it from 3 to 6 or 6:30 and help with the kids in the morning, go to my day job and come home and help with the kids, work a little bit till 10 or 11, get 4 or 5 hours of sleep and start working again. And I was just so excited about it. And that's when I knew I just thought, okay, this is what we need to do. There's a sign here. So it was a very busy time, and fortunately my wife was very supportive and was kind of, we talked through the risks and the upside and what happens if, and all these different scenarios. And she was very supportive. And, so about 6 months later, went ahead and pulled the trigger and started.
So you basically sleep 3-4 hours for 6 months until the day.
Yeah, basically.
You are so determined, Jim.
It was, but it was fun. It was that's when it didn't feel like a job at that point. It just felt like I was creating something. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting. I think if there's entrepreneurs out there who have created a business, it's just something. It's kind of like having kids. You can't describe it until you go through it. But it was exciting to do it. So it didn't seem like work.
Amazing, Jim. I definitely love your passion, love enthusiasm, and that dedication truly is what enable you to create something so beautiful and so magical. So let's talk about entrepreneurship, Jim. I'm sure it's not just a rainbow and sunshine and all the excitements, right? Let's be real for a second, right? What is the biggest challenge you had to overcome? Let's start from there. Oh, there's so many.
Plenty. There's a lot. I think cash flow is always an issue. I think it's hard to make realistic projections. You make all sorts of different scenario projections, and I think it happens with most businesses where you get to a point and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is harder than I thought. Like, did I bite off more than I can chew? And was this a good decision or was this a bad decision? And there are times where it's harder than you think. And it's I think being an entrepreneur, you're probably you probably have an optimistic tilt. I don't think you do things, you don't create a business or start a business without thinking it's going to work. So I think, entrepreneurs and a lot of people are just optimistic, and it's when it doesn't play out exactly like you think and like you hope and how you plan, it's difficult. And so it's one of those things where, kind of like we talked about earlier, you have difficulties. You have to just understand what the best path forward is. And, so we went through some pretty, uncertain times, and, it was important to me to keep our team involved. And, we had great client base, and, it just took longer than we thought to get, to kind of hit our milestones, right away. But it's sort of went like this, and then
Hockey
started
stick.
taking off.
Amazing.
So it's just kind of making sure you get to that sort of launching point.
So let's talk about this, Jim. You mentioned before that hockey stick take off, right? There are so many challenges, and you, of course, are optimistic, like every one of us. There's a time that's so hard. There's a time that you think, is this even right decision? And there's a time you question, are you, biting bigger than you can chew, right? How would you move forward with that moment? And I ask that question because I imagine many of our entrepreneurs today in this uncertainty probably are being through that challenging at some level, right? I'm curious, what made you overcome those, and if you can share some thoughts on that.
I mean, I think it was one of those things that I intentionally didn't give myself a plan B.
Burn the boat.
So this is how it's going to happen. I knew I could figure out a plan B if I needed to, but I intentionally didn't have a plan B.
Wow.
I think I should have learned early on to delegate more. And I think you try to do more than, you try, there's a lot of different hats you can wear. And, especially, we got third parties involved where we needed to, and make sure we have good technology. And, so we hired a tech firm and a compliance firm and all these different things, but there's still a lot on a day-to-day basis. So I think it's a matter of kind of recognizing, I think the two things that I recognized that were really, really important, and it, but it's hard to implement it, is, really delegate and really let people, there's a reason you hire people, and, you don't have to be involved in every single thing. You can be aware of what's going on and understand and make sure things are happening like they should, but, really turning over big parts to other people, I think was kind of tough for me early on. I think, recognizing that there are some clients you can serve well, and some clients that you just don't need to serve, that might not be a good fit. So you don't have to try to win every single, you can't be everything to everybody. And there's certain people that are just not going to be a good fit, and it's best for them and for you to, part ways, or just, I've recognized that now, that just, it's, not dealing with that in the first place. What is kind of really in our fairway. So those are things that I think as we started to implement those things, it sort of took care of itself, and allowing, there's only so much time, and, making sure, kind of focused on the right things that really move the needle, that create a successful business. I think once I really started doing that is when it started to take care of itself.
Amazing. Sounds like, Jim, along the journey, you learned a lot of incredible lessons, and that enable you to truly, start that hockey stick and going up, right? I'm curious, if you had this magic wand, you can change anything looking back in your journey, would you change anything?
No.
No?
I mean, maybe I wish I'd have made a putt last time I went golfing. But looking back, I mean, I think it's those, if everything is easy, then where do you learn? So I think with everything, with challenges, with with rewards, I think without that, you don't really learn. And kind of what I've found is, when I was at the big bank, I thought, my capacity, what I can do as an individual is not being challenged. I could have a great career, I could retire, relatively early. I could, have this just fine career in life, but I didn't feel challenged.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was continually underutilizing my own abilities.
Mhm.
And, so I kind of went from that to business owner, where now I feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. And I'm using, I just feel like I'm more, um, using my abilities, where I can. And it makes, even though it's, probably harder work on a day-to-day basis,
Mhm.
it's, frankly, it doesn't seem like work most of the time. There's definitely times where it does, but by challenging yourself
Mhm.
and getting out of your comfort zone, it's okay if you make some mistakes. Those are gonna happen.
Mhm.
You can't avoid
Mhm.
making mistakes. You can't avoid the challenges, but if you don't have the challenges, you're probably not pushing yourself enough.
Mhm.
And so I wouldn't change anything because it helps. I have so much better perspective from the 9/11 thing, and from the, different challenges that happen over time, that, just, I think it makes you better at what
Mhm.
you do. It makes you better, you know,
Mhm.
better able to serve clients, better able to, serve employees, better able to serve my family, better able to serve your community.
Mhm.
It just kind of improves you if you're pushing yourself and getting out of your comfort zone.
Amazing. And you touch base on, the mistakes and, the some challenges that really enable you to shape today's successes. I'm curious, Jim, you since I really love to win the game that you are playing today, how do you view failure? How do you view mistake? Because it's not fancy and glorious, right? I mean, no one want to truly be failure, right? How do you able to see that and truly see past through that and truly continue to drive to next thing until you find the success?
I mean, you either win or you learn. That's that's it.
Sure.
There's only two outcomes. It's, you either win or you have a learning experience.
That's beautiful.
And if you don't learn from it, then you wasted, a perfectly good opportunity to learn. And even when you win, you should be able to learn, but
Mm-hmm.
winning can hide a lot of things that you might be doing wrong and
Mm-hmm.
just not know it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when you get the challenges, and it's when you lose a deal, or when you go through a tough time, or when something doesn't go exactly as you hope, that
Mm-hmm.
you can learn from it. And so, it's, I think it's all your approach to it. And if you win, you win, but if you don't, you learn.
Amazing. It's so beautiful. Jim, you are so incredible and yet so humble and so open-minded. It's just, such an incredible story to share. So thank you. My last question for you, Jim, is, of course, you share a lot of, incredible lessons you learned along the way. And for our entrepreneurs who are listening today, right, in this uncertainty time today where, a lot of up and downs, is there something else you want to share with others that I have not asked you today that you thought would be beneficial for our entrepreneurs who are maybe thinking about starting a business or maybe already in the business, in the hustle, in the grind, in those small learning opportunities today, right? Do you have any other advice you want to share?
I mean, it's so different for, everybody has their own journey, and
Sure.
everybody brings their own experience and own goals and own, I think it's probably don't live somebody else's life,
Ooh.
and don't, make it, you kind of get out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself. And,
Mhm.
there's uncertainty with that, but there's a lot of good things that can come of it.
Wow.
So, make sure you work hard. Don't let it be your own fault that
Mhm.
it doesn't succeed.
Mhm.
But, get out of your comfort zone, and you know live your life. Don't live somebody else's life.
Wow.
And I think if more people did that, we'd have
Mhm.
a lot happier people, and, pursuing things, that can challenge themselves, and there's reward out of that, even if there's uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So beautiful, Jim. And thank you so much today for coming and sharing your incredible story. You are so courageous and so intentional about who you are and truly live life on your purpose, and go out there, do the hard work, and really optimistic, and so humble, always to learn. I think your amazing attitude, your perspective to things, to life, truly is what made you such an incredible, extraordinary businessman today. So I'm really honored. I want to thank you for being here today, and really just so inspiring. And I also want to thank you for everybody for tuning in today. I really hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And I cannot wait to see everybody next Tuesday.